collective conversation. It's a we conversation. In this room, by design and intention, are leaders in this community, whether civic leaders, whether other public leaders, whether CEOs of corporations, those in partnership, nonprofits, and others, donors. So these are leaders in our community, and we just want to come together. And we hope that this may become an annual event. So I am thankful you're here. Matter of fact, I'd like to recognize just a few folks. We have a few of our elected officials, or those representing elected officials. I'd like to ask them to stand and be recognized if you're in the house. Congressman Cohen, thank you. Yes. Also have several of our Agape board members, and I'd love for them to stand and so you know some of our Agape board members. So if our Agape board would stand or present. We have a number of our leadership staff in Agape team here. I'm going to ask them just to stand and be seen and recognized. Some of our 120 staff serving in Agape. And then we've got a lot of partners here in this room. And so if we are in partnership, because no organization does this alone, right? And so if we are in partnership in some way, I want to ask you to stand and be recognized as well. A lot of folks. Thank you. Yes. So this is very much a we conversation. And as we begin this conversation, this state of Agape, I want to ask Josh Ross, who is one of our great board members, great friend of mine, who is the pastor for the Sycamore View Church, to begin us in prayer. Josh.
Let's bow our heads. God, we thank you for the opportunity to come in this room and to enjoy some food and some fellowship. And God, we are here to hear about some stuff going on with Agape here throughout our city. And I declare in this room today that as an organization, we are unashamedly so honored and proud to try to represent Jesus here in Shelby County. And as Jesus taught us to pray years ago for your kingdom to come here on earth as it is in heaven, we recognize that there are some things happening right here in our city that do not reflect the wholeness of heaven. So we're asking for deposits of our future, deposits of heaven to fall here in our city today. Declare that in heaven it is a poverty-free zone, a bondage-free zone, a place where there is no systematic oppression or injustice, and will you send deposits of that future into our present. God, we're here to serve you, to be inspired, and to live beyond ourselves for the good of what is happening here in our city. So today, inspire our hearts as we celebrate a season of how you injected yourself into this world. Inspire us to inject ourselves into this world too, for the good of your kingdom and the glory of the name of Jesus. And it's in his name we pray. And everyone said, Amen.
Thank you, John. So, the state of Agape. Agape means love. So the state of love in our community. The state of how we love our neighbor. So that's much of what we're talking about today. Just as a preface, and we have several people who'll come up, you'll see we have this set up for a panel. You're going to hear from several partners speaking on the state of love in our community, the state of Agape. So how did we get to this place? None of you know some of the story. I think it's important just to remind and for me to be reminded of that. This is my 25th year as the CEO at Agape. I'm thankful. You know, it's said when the board comes together, their first question to ask is this the day we fire the CEO? I'm thankful we've not quite gotten to that day yet, and I am very thankful that God brought us here, my family and I, and that we're a part. So many of you would know in Agape's 50 years, this is our 50th year anniversary, our road to 50. We turned 50 on April 1, 2020. Many of you would know that for our first 25 years, we were focused exclusively on foster care and adoption. Well, as we began kind of this road of loving your neighbor and hearing from your neighbor, for us, that became very transformative. And so we have been on quite a road for at least 15 or more years, Dr. Robinson. And so as we have done that, and we have listened to the voice of our people, and we've listened to the voice of those that we come alongside, that has brought about a transformation in who we are. And so while we still serve some youth and families through foster care and adoption, and that is needed, it has a place, we have gone, as some would say, upstream, and we have said, what does it look like to go in communities where those children and families live prior to coming into a system such as foster care? So, Angela, we've gone into Fraser. We've gone into Hickory Hill, southeast Memphis. We've gone in and partnered with Whitehaven. Those three communities, there are numbers of strengths clearly in those communities, but those communities also are where a significant number of children come into the foster care system, among other matters. And so as we have sat beside our neighbor, and we have sat around tables like this, and we've had food, and we've had these community cafes, and we've heard the voice of the people have said, if you really want to help, and you really want to be about poverty fighting and poverty reduction, then you need to know, and that's why I'm so thankful for NPD and Director Ryle and Rawlings and others in this field. Safety is almost number one, General Wyrick, and our work together around that. Our families have also said, if you want to help, education is greatly needed. And we have some of our education partners here, Brett Lawson and others. Others have said, if you want to help, then you need to be about workforce development and jobs. And so the Chamber and WIN and others that we partner with. If you want to help, you need to think about housing. And so Cherie in the Community Alliance for the Homeless and many others focused around housing and housing stability. If you want to help, I need a sense of hope and hopefulness. And so pastors and leaders in this house giving a sense of hope and hopefulness. So we really tried to listen to that voice. Matter of fact, my board, who I am proud of, said over 10 years ago, we will no longer, we have funders in this room, we will no longer receive any money that is not connected to what the voice of the people say this would be most helpful. We no longer come in with our best idea. We hear the voice of our people, we walk alongside, and we do it in this, what's called two-generation model, serving both generations, both parent, both child, holistically serving families within community, doing it in the place where people live. Some folks call that place-based. And so our 120 staff, nearly all in office and work out of these three communities alongside our families. It has transformed Agape. We have 100+ partners. We have about 1,000 volunteers. But it very much is a we-ness. There's no one organization that can do this work by ourselves. Our partnership with Urban Child and with Gary and our involvement with early childhood, the focus around K-12, our focus around workforce development, housing, and those fleeing out of domestic violence, working with churches in the center of the work. And so we have over 100 partners that we serve with and alongside, and in the center are our families. And so I just wanted to frame this conversation so you'll hear different partners talking about different aspects. But we are really trying to be driven, as you are, as we are doing this together, around what our families would say, this would be what is most helpful to me, my family, and my community. And can we together move the needle of poverty and all that that means? Because we live in a city where poverty is great. We live in a city where poverty has worsened in 1 year's time. But there are things happening. God be praised. There's movement in the right direction. So again, I'm thankful you're here. I'm thankful for our partnership. I'm thankful for the state of Agape, the state of loving our neighbor well. So for our first panel, I want to invite up, and I want to mention the persons who will be coming forward. Dr. Rory Phillips. Rory was on her way here. She is chief, one of the chiefs with Shelby County Schools. I'm very glad that Dr. Phillips is here. We also have Colonel and Pastor James Kirkwood, a former colonel for Memphis Police Department, who gets that side of the work very much and is a pastor of a church, also leading the Memphis Pastors Christian Network, and so being the executive director of that. And then we have Beverly Robertson, who is the president and CEO of the Memphis Chamber of Commerce. And so really glad they're here. They're going to be led in facilitation by the one and only Julie Sano, who is our COO, the one and only, who is the CEO of Agape. This is her 9th year. Julie is a great friend, partner, and just has done a phenomenal job in the work here at Agape and in our partnerships. Would you welcome all four as they come forward? And Julie will lead that.
Good morning. Well, as always, I'm going to take the opportunity to veer off a little bit. As I walked around the room and I met all of our friends, our collaborative friends, I had a thought. Most of us, or many of us, traveled over the Thanksgiving holiday to different places to be with families. And God brought us back here. And brought us back here for a purpose. The scripture that came to mind for me was, behold, how good and pleasant it is for brethren and sisterin, if that's a word, to be able to dwell together in unity. God has work to be done in Memphis. And that work is done through us and the people that couldn't be here today. And so I think we should look at the person next to us and say, thank God that he brought me back here to be able to continue to do that work. Can you do that?
Yes.
And thank God for turkey and chitlins. So, can you guys hear me back in the back? No? Yes? Okay. So I'm going to take a few moments before we have an opportunity to speak with our panel. I see Deborah. Oh, hey, Deborah. Before we speak with our panel, I'm going to take a few moments just to speak to you a little bit about Agape. As I look around the room, I know a lot of you know about Agape, but I've also spoken with some people that said, I'm interested in being here today to be able to hear more about what Agape does. And so if you'll indulge me for just a moment on that. Agape is in 3 different communities in Memphis. We're in Frazier, Whitehaven, Hickory Hill, and now, most recently, we've gone back into Raleigh through our Families in Transitions program. And I'd like to share with you some things about those communities. Oftentimes, we hear negatives, and it's sort of like in the Wiz. We don't want to hear no bad news today. But the communities that we serve in, they have pride of community. There's a heritage. Those communities have personal connections. There's strong community organizations within those communities, and there's strong churches on the ground doing the Agape work. There's an untapped workforce pipeline within those communities. I think that's an important one for us to understand. There is an untapped workforce pipeline. There's amazing resilience. People live in some very traumatic environments, but they're resilient. And they're growing their children. And they're being successful in spite of. And that's something to applaud. Right, and then there are some needs, just like in any of our households. There's some needs about things to make better. And so what David shared is we go in community cafes and sit around the table and ask families, what do you like about your community? What don't you like about your communities? What would you like to change in your community? And then there's an empowerment component. What would you like to be a part of the change? And based on that, Agape and its collaborative partners responds to those desired needs. We don't go in and say, I think you need this. We listen. We listen to the voice. And so what is the voice saying? The voice is saying, I want to be able to walk on the sidewalk with my children and take them to the playground and play with them just like anybody else. I want employment so that I can be the provider for my family, so that my children can look up to me and not say somebody else needs to do this, but my mama and daddy can take care of me. Is that an unrealistic expectation? Remember that untapped pipeline, workforce pipeline. Transportation. I chose to live here, but I need to be able to get to work. I need help in navigating these systems. If any of you have had to go through some of these systems, you know what that means. So I need help in navigating education, that system. I'm uncomfortable going in and talking to the teacher. I don't know what to say to the teacher. Housing, affordable quality housing, the legal system, and health, just to name a few. And then advocacy. I need somebody that can help open a door for me. Is there anybody in this room who hasn't had somebody open the door for them? That's what they're asking for. I've not met a person yet in my almost 9 years that says, I just want you to give me something. I want to be empowered to be able to do for myself. And so that's what Agape and its collaborative partners are doing. I'm not sure if a DHS representative is here or not, but I want to call out that our 2Gen effort was significantly funded through DHS. And so I want everybody to know that while we have many collaborative partners, the work that we are currently doing, the lion's share of that was funded through DHS. I think we might skip one. There you go. Okay. So when we talk about the work that needs to be done in Agape, I'm just going to say just one thing. Poverty is economic poverty, we know that. But there are a lot of other measures of poverty. And Agape strives to measure those as well so that we can help families move forward. But what you're seeing on the slide here specifically speaks to poverty. And I want to call your attention to Memphis. Memphis' poverty rate is unacceptable. And I believe that the people in this room and the collaborative partners that we work with can make a difference in this. When you look at the overall poverty rate of Memphis in comparison to the United States and Tennessee, it's double. When you look at the underage poverty, and law enforcement will tell you a lot of the crimes are done by what age? Under 18? Okay, 44.9% of Memphis's children, I say children, ages 18 and under, live in poverty. Poverty causes desperation. Yes, this is unacceptable. Agape says this is when it comes to poverty in Memphis. These numbers should not be here. So, and I know I'm singing to the choir. I know we're all in this together. But I want you to know that Agape is committed to addressing, fighting, eliminating poverty within Memphis. And I know many of you are. Kenneth, that's it. That's what we want to do. We want to make Memphis a community where families can take care of themselves and have economic mobility. So again, I would say poverty is not just economics. Poverty is food insecurity. Poverty is health. It's me not being able to take my child to the doctor. Poverty is shelter. Not having quality shelter. I don't want to have to live in an unsafe environment. Poverty is education. Poverty is representation and empowerment and advocacy and voice. When you don't have that, you feel invisible. Has anybody in here ever been invisible? I grew up in the 50s and 60s in a segregated South. There were times that I felt invisible, and I was empowered. And I'm here today because there were people through God that said, you go. You go. And there was also some that said, you go. So, our model is a 2-gen model. When we talk about those measures of poverty, if you look at our model, you'll even see it. Early childhood education. We want every child. We can do this. We want every child kindergarten ready. Churches, businesses, we can do this. That's a small thing. Amen? Kindergarten ready, because that's the start. Education is an equalizer, right? First grade through high school, we want children to be successful in the classroom. We want them there. We don't want the behavior issues. We don't want the truancies, right, DA? We want them there and learning. When it comes to jobs, economic impact, when it comes to need for counseling, mental health, undiagnosed mental health, we want to be able to provide those families all the resources they need, not just to create programs, but again, we're fighting poverty. Whatever that poverty definition is, we're fighting poverty as a collaborative. So, this just gives you an idea about how many people we serve in the course of a year. You can look at the different years, but our 3-year goal is to serve 505 low-income families by the end of the 3 years. And Agape right now has already served 1,300 plus families. Next, individual serving. Our goal is to serve a little over 2,000 individuals within our 3rd year, and Agape has already served. And now when I say Agape, hear me. This is Agape. Agape has served over 3,000 families. Next, education. I'm gonna walk up to the stage now. Stop my slow list. So education is one of those areas that we talk about. Our STARS program is in 16 schools in the 3 communities that we spoke about, and we have staff that are actually on the ground in the schools, working with the schools. We're not the educators. We're the ones that are addressing those issues that keeps the child from being in the classroom, ready and able to learn. And so measures for us have to do with attendance, behavior, because those are usually the 2 things that keep them out of school, right? So I want to ask you a question. Are you ready? Okay. What is your social security number? So how would you describe Shelby County Schools and Agape's collaborative partnership and the importance of that collaborative partnership for those that may not know what it's about?
Good morning, everyone. That's a great question. David and I, we talk a lot as it relates to what the needs are within Shelby County. We have over 110,000 students in our schools, and our average attendance rate right now is about 94%. So we know that we have to understand why our students aren't coming to school. And it's one thing to educate, but you can't educate if they're not there. You also have to find out what are the nemesis, what are the reasons why our students aren't able to perform. So it's attendance, and then it's the discipline component. And so it takes a village, it takes a community, cannot just be one. And so what we try to say all the time is, we are here to remove the barriers so that principals can lead, teachers can teach, and students can learn. We say that all the time. And so one great thing about Agape is the connectors. It's not just being in the school, checking on Johnny to see if he's in his seat today, but it's also they're able to go to the home to talk to Johnny's mother to see what it is that she needs. Not everyone has it right. Not everyone is the perfect parent, but that does not mean they're not a good parent, or they don't have the ability or want to do. They may not have been parented.
Yes.
So that's one reason why it's important to have such great Christian-founded relationships in our city, because our students truly need us and our parents need us. The school system needs you.
And I'm glad you said the school system needs you. One of the things that touched my heart when I first came here, we were having a community cafe. And then, Tawana, you remember this, because it brought tears to me. The lady in the room talked about her child who was in kindergarten, and she was in Hickory Hill, and the kindergartner had to walk on Hickory Hill Road to go to school. The mother worked, and she had to be at work at 6 o'clock in the morning. So she was having to leave the house with her kindergartner still at home. She didn't have older kids, and that child was walking to school. And the job that she had didn't allow her to use her cell phone to be able to check on the child to see if they made it or if they made it home. Everybody in this room plays a part, just like you said. Employers, when you think about the kind of policies that you put in place, okay? It's hard for me to be on that assembly line as a mother, okay? We even got a whoop from there. It's hard for me to be on that assembly line as a mother doing my best when I got a kindergartner that I can't call, and I'm just waiting till I get home in the afternoon time to see if they made it home safe. Memphis, we can do better. We can do better. So it takes everybody in this. Yes? Okay, the next one is housing. What I want to say on this one is, if you look at it, one of the ways that we measure success as it regards housing is whether or not families are able to pay their rent on time. And what you'll see here on this one is that 71% of our families pay their rent on time. Now, in addition to this, we also have our Families in Transitions program, and I know a lot of you have heard about FIT. Sierra is somewhere around in here. Our FIT, stand up so they can see you, Sierra. Sierra, we have a strong collaboration through the Community Alliance for the Homeless, MIFA, the Y, lots of different collaborative partners that work specifically on housing stability with families. And so our families that are in the Families in Transitions program, well over 100, they're not included in but they are also paying their rent on time as well. And so that's a start for families. For children, they can't be successful in the classroom if there's a fear of them coming home and all their furniture is out on the side of the road. That's right? Okay. Safety. I want to talk to my brother Kirkwood about safety. With all of your law enforcement experiences, can you tell me, what do you think are the priorities in regards to Agape's collaboration? And that, again, Agape has a lot of collaborative partners. But what do you see as the impacts as it regards safety? For the audience, they're looking at the chart now that speaks to safety. And we know that in the apartment complexes that we serve in, safety increased, but it increased because of domestic violence, it increased because of property damage and vandalism. But can you speak a little bit about this collaboration, what it means?
Yes, safety is, as a colonel, you always everybody wants you to make sure everything is well. Police department is tagged with this here. I think sometimes, as though they were gods, and they could just erase everything. But safety has to be a community effort, all right? Everybody has to come to the table around whatever problems they are occurring. When I was a colonel, I was blessed that every area I went, I had Agape, all right, as my partner, all right? And they reached out to me, and when I found out, like, whoa, this is a great organization, and we can really work together. But safety, you know, if a community come together, if the leaders, if the people in this room come together and say there's a complex, a problem with bullying, all right? Everybody in the room has that problem, right? It's not the person who was victimized, their problem alone. No, it's all of our problem. And that's what Agape does. Agape tries to figure out how to deal with a problem based on, it's not even their problem, they just take the problem, all right? If a kid comes in with that problem, it's our problem. And then they reach out with police, and they reach out with other community partners, other churches, ministries, to work with around how do we build a solution regarding bullying, right? How do we figure out, all of us in the room, how do we figure out how to address it so that it goes away, all right? And so that the child who was victimized is empowered, but also the child who did the victimization, who did it, all right? The child who perpetrated. We have to work with it, because usually that kid probably was bullied, all right? And so he's acting out the behavior, or he may not have some situations, he may have some situations at home where he's angry, all right? He may be hungry, he's angry, all right? The lights may be off, and he's angry, you know? And so when you really work with it, that's why I love Agape, because I could go as a colonel, I'd be like, hey, y'all got some counselors? And they're like, yeah, we got some counselors. Well, counsel this boy, all right? See what's going on with this child, so that we can work with, do I need to partner with a church to connect them with a church or a youth ministry? That's how you build safety within the community, all right? And when you have to address whatever the issues are, and they may be different from different communities, it may be different. Domestic violence, huge problem in our area, and I think, you know, I'm blessed. I wasn't raised with domestic violence, but everywhere I saw it, I saw everyone in the house feeling unsafe. All right, wherever it was, all right, even while they was walking to school, they still had this unsafe feeling. All right, and so how do we grab hold to it? And I was happy because I had a place where I could send mothers, you know, we victims of domestic violence, I could call Agape and say, hey, y'all gotta have to, this lady needs help, all right? We gotta get her out. But how do we build around that for the children and the community so that we together address it? That's what Agape does. And I appreciate Agape because they realized they couldn't do it alone. I appreciate the police department because it has always realized we could not do it alone. Everybody in the room, and I tell people all the time, Memphis is a beautiful, I love these numbers that they give out, poverty is increasing. I be like, ooh, we are harvest. all right? And that's a preacher, man. We have a harvest, all right? God has given us a great opportunity to do a great work, you know, and we should really be excited as believers because God has given us something to show the world. Look what God can do through the lives of his vessels, us. And we can work it, and we can, whatever you want, whatever success you want, you got plenty now to just rise to the top, all right? You know, the question is, do we remain in unity and work with it as a God? Do we partner? And, you know, it's all right if she shine, and I sit in the background. I'm gonna get credit, all right, you know, but I'm gonna let her be there, all right? So, but safety is this thing, guys, that all of us have to be a part of the fight, all right? For me, it's community policing, all right? It's coming in and partnering with everybody that's connected to the community, regarding whatever problems the community is having.
Yes, thank you. And to continue with that faith piece, Agape has this year formed our family or faith formation engagement. Dan Henley, Pastor Dan Henley, couldn't be here today, but we want to talk a little bit about that because that's fairly new to Agape. And so, is the slide up on that? Okay. It just kind of speaks to you about what does that look like. And bottom line, what it's saying is there's a role for everybody to play in responding to the needs within the Hickory Hill, Fraser, Raleigh, and Whitehaven communities. If you're a large church outside those communities, if you're a church inside those communities that have the space to be able to be a hub church, if you're a church that is already on the ground providing services and supports, we want to come alongside you to be able to give you resources and assistance to be able to grow that, because again, ultimately, it's for the entire community. So my time is running short as I see, so I at least want to let you know that this is what this is about. And for additional information, if you'll get with Tori or get with Dan Henley, he'll be glad to share that with you. Now, lastly, but not least, I'd like to speak with Beverly a little bit. So Beverly, we've been a collaborative partner with the Chamber for quite a while. Are you on? I have for quite a while. I just want to talk to you or have you answer anything you want to answer. But what are the Chamber's goals as it regards workforce development? And why is partnerships with Agape and all these collaborative partners that are out here, why is it important?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me here this morning, and I'm delighted to participate. Clearly, there are more things that unite us than divide us. And if we remember that, I think we would do ourselves well to understand that collaboration works. You know, when I came to the Chamber, I guess I came about a year ago now. I've been there a year, yay! And we've been moving and shaking ever since. Yes. Certainly in different ways than most traditional chambers, but one of the things that I saw is there was a real need to create this talent pipeline. And I'll tell you why it's significant, not just in Memphis, Tennessee, but all across the country. First of all, unemployment, according to the Wall Street Journal, nationally is about 3.4%, and then in Memphis, Tennessee, it's 3.9%, the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. The lowest unemployment rate. And while it's great on one hand, it's tough on another. Because what that means is businesses cannot find employees for the jobs that they have. Now, there's been speculation that there are about 15 to 21,000 jobs available in Memphis, Tennessee, for which there is no talent. So we have a talent pipeline issue. And to be able to address that issue, the Chamber came up with a 2-day workforce summit where we actually convened partners, and we asked them to come to the summit to be able to work together. Now, let me tell you, having run a nonprofit, a major nonprofit for a number of years, what I know about why we don't come together is I think many of us don't want somebody else to figure out who is funding us. And the reason is because resources are limited, and we hesitate to talk to each other because we want to make sure we keep our funders, and not somebody else's. But I think what we've also learned is there is a lot more out here that we can get if we work together. So what we've done is, and I won't talk about day one, but I do want to talk about day two, because that was a powerful experience. We convened players in 4 major pillars. The education and training pillar, where we asked all the folks who had anything to do with education and training, whether that's more technical training, Tennessee Tech, Shelby County Schools, Southwest Tennessee, all of those players work together. We asked the opportunity youth folks in those pillars to come together and work together. We asked opportunity adults to come together, work together. And we also asked the community of faith for the first time in the life of the chamber to come together and work to try to identify plans with metrics that would allow us to upskill 10,000 people for the workforce in the next 12 to 36 months. We think we're going to do it shy of that. We think we'll have those numbers made very quickly. But what we ask them to do is develop a plan collaboratively to identify what is your goal for upskilling. How do we upskill 3 to 4 times what we're producing? If we produce 100 people now, how do we produce 400 trained people for the workforce? And each organization developed their own plan, but we didn't make it stop there. We had a facilitator. They'll convene these people quarterly. We will identify if they're meeting their targets. If they're meeting their targets and they need additional resources, the chamber will help to find those resources, so you don't have to worry about whose funder is sitting at the table. We will help you upscale your work by providing resources that will help you do your job more effectively. And here's the value of Agape. We know that businesses have jobs. You know where the people are. So if we marry you knowing where the people are with the jobs that are available and we get them upskilled, then we got a win-win for Memphis. And guess what happens in Memphis? Poverty goes down. People have pride. When you give people a job, you give them pride. You give them the opportunity to take care of their families. They have life. And when people have life, they don't have to conk you in the head for what you got. They don't have to do that anymore because they can take care of their families. So that's the beauty of the relationships with Agape, the school system, the community of faith. That the community of faith is in Memphis. We have a church on every corner, and sometimes 2 or 3 within a block. If we don't utilize that resource to help us identify those folks who are marginalized and disenfranchised, get them prepared for a workforce that is changing every day. And let me tell you a few things we learned. We learned that upscaling is not something you do one time. As technology continues to change people, as we start talking about artificial intelligence and robotics and digitization, what we need to realize is upskilling is something we have to do every year. We've got to upskill our people so that they have jobs in this highly technical economy that is already here. You know, they say God is already here. Technology is already here. And we've got to figure out how to utilize it effectively. So that's the value of Agape. And we appreciate our relationship with Agape and all of you out here who are partners with the chamber, because together we can drive transformative change in Memphis, Tennessee. We all want it, we need it, and we can do it, but we have to do it together. Thanks.
Well, our time is up, and I just want to thank the panel for their participation. More importantly, I want to thank the panel for us being able to work together collaboratively. My last closing thoughts I'd like to say, I always believe in for such a time as this. We have an opportunity to change the narrative for those same people that we were talking about up here. Everybody in this room, be you collaborative partner, be you business owner, BU faith-based organization, BU some of the community partners, we can change the narrative. If the people could take a message, and as a favorite book that some of us read says, they turn the town upside down with it, we can turn Memphis upside down. I see Principal Britton back there. He's turning it upside down, and they may see a walk.
Yeah.
We can do this together, because greater is He that is in us than He is in the world. Amen.
Julie and panel, thank you very much. Very good, very inspiring. Thank you. I now want to invite Justin Miller, founder and CEO of Slingshot, Pastor Sheila Floyd with Pursuit of God Church, and Tim Burleson, Agape Board Chair, as well as Regional Sales Director for Dell, to come up and join me on stage. Please welcome as they come up. Well, as we enter into this part of the conversation, we wanted to kind of get to some of the so what. So all this work, the cradle to career focus, as we've been talking about, the very critical work around workforce development, faith, safety, education, just this holistic work. Well, so I have some partners up here I want to share with you prior to their speaking. I think there's something important. I've said it in several places, and the data shows this. While in Memphis, we've actually backed up by a 5 percentage point in terms of poverty in 1 year. So we keep talking about poverty, and specifically around economic mobility. So needing to call that out, only 3 to 5% of our families that live and grow up born in poverty in Memphis ever escape poverty. We need to sit with that for a minute. So many of the systems, many of the matters that are holding our families back. So through our 2-generation, our collective work together, the data that we have been, that we're showing here for the 1,300 plus families, the nearly 4,000 individuals that we worked with in this partnership. In the first year, as you can see, we saw nearly 3% of our families move beyond the federal poverty line. Our goal was that 1 percentage point, 1% of our families would exceed and move beyond poverty in a year, and we do that over a 10-year period. And so for 10% in a 10-year period. In our first year, we saw almost 3%. In year 2, almost 4%. In the last quarter, 7.5%. So we're seeing improvement. Now, is the work done? By no means. Have matters arrived for our families? No. There's much more to be done. So I don't want to overstate that. But what it does give me encouragement is that God's seeing fit that in our work together, we are seeing movement. And it's somewhat going upstream against even what our overall community is experiencing right now. So our collective work together. Well, on stage, as I mentioned, we have some distinguished people, and I want each one of them to speak. Justin Miller is the founder and CEO of Slingshot Memphis, and Justin and I came to know each other, I think, through Camp Holcomb, one of our board members, probably, Justin, 3 years or so ago, and wanted Justin to be able to come and talk about their very important work here in our city, our partnership that we have had this year, and any comments you want to make around that assessment. So Justin.
Great, thanks David. I am excited to be here, and it's not a surprise. What Slingshot is doing is very relevant to the work in this room. So giving is hard, Personally and professionally, we get it. We think giving is especially challenging in Memphis. We have limited resources, and we have huge yawning social ills like poverty, and so it's upon us to be really good stewards of those resources. And in a nutshell, that's what Slingshot aims to help with. So as Brother Kirkwood mentioned, he used the word harvest, which we think about this challenge, limited resources, and huge challenges as an opportunity. What if we began investing more of our limited resources in solutions that have the greatest return? There's evidence outside of Memphis that if we did that, things would really change. And so at Slingshot, we like to say this, and it's definitely appropriate for the word love and agape. We are called to love our neighbors as ourselves, to create more justice. We are called to relinquish more, and we are called to do so faster and with more impact. This demands more urgency and more transparency. And so Slingshot's mission is to create a demonstrable reduction in poverty by promoting a results-driven poverty-fighting ecosystem. So what do I mean by a results-driven poverty-fighting ecosystem? It is working alongside nonprofits, businesses, faith-based communities, government, to make really good decisions about how we invest our resources, whether that's volunteerism or capital or otherwise. And so our mission is dependent upon three critical functions. And as I walk you through these functions, I want you to know that the ordering of these functions really matters. So first, Slingshot, I think, is uniquely equipped to identify which organizations have the evidence or the potential to create the most impact. Slingshot is uniquely equipped to identify which organizations have the evidence or the potential to create the most impact. Why does this matter? Because as it was mentioned on the recent panel, there are thousands, literally thousands of nonprofits all fighting for limited resources, and this is not sustainable, nor is it effective, especially for our under-resourced neighbors. The second thing that Slingshot does is we walk alongside our partners like Agape, and I saw some of our other friends, CIS and CEO, are also in the room. I'm sure there's others. We walk alongside them to help them support their poverty-fighting impact. I think most of us in this room would agree that researching best practices, doing benefit cost analysis, evaluating things like systems level change, all of these things are paramount for an organization to maximize its impact. Unfortunately, most of our partners don't have the bandwidth or the resources to do these things. We believe that Slingshot is a really smart means to fill this particular gap in Memphis, and so we do that. The third thing we do, we think that Slingshot is uniquely positioned to attract and direct more resources, often resources that would not be invested otherwise, and this includes private and public dollars. One thing that's a little unique about our model is that we do raise capital and we inject it into our amazing partners because what they're doing demands resources to do it, right? But ultimately, we want to shine light on those things that really are working well so that people can invest in them directly. We think that's really important as well. So our team of experts, and I'm a bit biased, but I do recommend go to our website and look at the bios of the people that work at Slingshot. I often say any good roadmap for success is only as good as the people that execute it. And there are people from all over the world here doing amazing things, and I'm grateful for them. So what they've done is they've built what we consider to be a very cost-effective and accurate way to estimate the impact of a nonprofit. Our focus is fighting poverty, of course. And so we look at 4 dimensions. And really this tool, it's nothing more than a way for us to ask the right questions. It's really nothing more than a way for us to identify what are those things that really move the needle. And so as part of our impact assessment, each of our partners are rated across 4 dimensions. And so we do this not in a way to judge our partners. It is a genuine partnership. We do it in a way to create a baseline. Where are you at? So as you can see, it's benefit cost ratio. which is pretty simple. What does it cost, and what is the impact? The second thing is best practices. It sounds pretty common sense, right? But a lot of times our nonprofit partners don't have the time to research best practices in the field outside of Memphis. And so what we do is we say, are there best practices in the field? Do you know what they are, and are you following them with fidelity? And we help them research those things, which is really important. The next is measurement infrastructure. It's a feedback loop. Are you measuring stuff? Does it matter? Is that information that you're measuring useful for you to get better over time? And so I think we're pretty good at that as well. And the last thing is systems level change, which is really important. It is, how are you creating change beyond the beneficiaries that you directly serve? How are you changing the game? And so again, we're not creating this grid to judge anyone. It's like, hey, where you at? And then how do we unearth together actionable intelligence for partners to move from left to right, to become best in class? And so as we go to the next one, this is our recent impact assessment. We were fortunate, although as David mentioned, we've been back and forth for about 3 years now exploring partnership opportunities. We began working with Agape, thanks be to God, in January of this year, and it has been fantastic. And let me state what you already know. Slingshot is learning a lot more from Agape, Julie and her team, and David, than Agape would ever learn from Slingshot. But you know what? I think a lot of other organizations are going to learn from Agape as well. Part of our work is to unearth this information. And so this is our ratings overview, but behind this is literally 40 pages of research and impact chains, and using data from Agape itself and also third-party information to understand where they currently sit along each of these dimensions. And so what Slingshot is built to do is to celebrate those things that work and to identify growth opportunities for all of us to get better. For us to create a better quality of life for our under-resourced neighbors, funders and fighters have a lot of room to get better. And so Slingshot is just interested in sharing this information, being really transparent about it. Slingshot is not a silver bullet. There's not one, but we are grateful for this partnership. And as you can see, this is rare to have an organization that is so far to the right. Again, David will tell you, Julie will tell you, they're not done. They've got a lot of room to grow, and certainly Slingshot does. But this is so promising. We are called to be extremely good stewards of our resources, and that's one of the reasons we're excited about this partnership.
Justin, thank you. We are thankful for the partnership and thankful of your work in Memphis and working with nonprofits and are doing this together. And there is much to learn together. So thank you. Yes. We also have Sheila Floyd, pastor with Pursuit of God Church, along with her husband, Apostle Floyd. Julie alluded to this in our faith and formation engagement. So part of our two-generation model as a Christian-based organization, working with churches in the center of the work. And so having what we call hub churches. And so Pursuit of God is our first hub church. It's an indigenous, on the ground, in the community church, working alongside and with and deep partnership with. And so glad to have Pastor with us. So as Justin has talked about outcomes and return on investment, I wanted to hear around just your experience around transformation and what you are seeing in our work together and in the community.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for having us here. Listen, we are extremely excited about this partnership and the collaboration that we have with Agape, because Agape comes alongside the church and assists the church with what we intend to do in the community, on the ground with the people that we see every day. And so we can, come and give them the spiritual needs that they have, but it's just like when Jesus talked to the people in the Sermon on the Mount, they were hungry. So they had natural needs that even Jesus knew. We need to take care of their natural needs, and guess what? That helps them receive the spiritual needs even more, because who can hear when they're hungry? And so when they come alongside us, it really has been extremely wonderful we have seen, well, first of all, let me say, just even with the partnerships with the pastors in the community, Agape has come alongside and with the faith-based initiatives, you know, we've had prayer breakfasts with the pastors. So now we have pastors all around the city coming together to pray. And that's one of the things that, you know, we've always heard, well, why don't the pastors get along with one another? Well, it's not that. It's just that everybody has a work to do. And if you're doing that work, sometimes you can't do everything. And you know, people generally think the church can do everything, but with this collaboration, it's allowed us to come together and just pray. It's amazing what prayer can do. But also with this collaboration, it has really provided hope to the hopeless in our communication, in our community. There is nothing sadder than to be in an indigenous community and have a person come and say, listen, I have no place to live. You know, so we're already, you know, not a giant church, but to come and say, okay, how are we going to take care of these people's needs? Yes, Jesus loves me, but I need someplace to stay. And so it's been amazing, this collaboration. I can recall one of the ladies that we met through Agape with their summer program and summer camp for children. And a young lady that we met through that program heard about what we were doing in our church, which was a Husband Institute. It's a boys to men mentoring program. And so they connected from the summer camp with her children, connected with our mentoring program. And this lady was escaping, you know, domestic violence. She was from another country. And so here she is, she's here with her children. Agape was able to assist alongside her with immigration. And so I'm just so happy to say that, you know, not only is she legal now, through Agape's collaboration, she has a place to live. She was able to get a job through the program. And with our spiritual help, we were able, you know, to just deal with her from the aspect of she didn't get along with her family members. And she told me one day, she says, let me tell you something. Since I connected with you all at Agape, she said, I have so much love in my heart for my mother. She said, I didn't get along well with my mother. And so, you know, she had tears in her eyes. And so there's no replacing that now, you know, she can think about her emotional part because they helped her with counseling, with housing. She has transportation. And before transportation, she could catch a bus, where she couldn't catch a bus before. And so to come and say, now I can really receive and learn how to love my children, that's just amazing. That's just amazing. And so it provided hope to this woman. I'm reminded of another gentleman who came through one of the job fairs we had. And so this gentleman came, you know, we would partner with them and host it at our church. And there was a gentleman and his elderly mom, and he was, you know, you could see the stress. Now, who goes to a job interview stressed out? Generally, those are not the people that's going to get hired because they're coming in their tents and, you know, can bring fear. Well, both of them, they were desperate. They were desperate. And so he had been in jail 28 years. And because of the felon-friendly job fairs that we were able to collaborate on, this gentleman walked out of there with a job after having been in jail 28 years. And then I want to say about 28 days later, Agape gave him another referral. So here's a gentleman with 2 jobs now, who said, for the first time in 28 years, I'm able to do something for my own children. And this elderly woman who is saying, thank God for this, because now I don't have to have my adult child living off my low income. And so it's just amazing how you can, you know, with this collaboration there, where else would they have gone? So they're coming in and they're able to get that hope and get that help that they may otherwise not be able to have. And so with that, it's helping to create healthier families. because again, they were stressed out, but then to call back and say, thank God, we see a way out, we see a way forward. And so things like that have been amazing. Also, I know there have been, there was a young lady, our church is directly across the street from an elementary school and a high school. And so there was an occasion where the principal called to the church and said, hey, we got a young man, he's got behavior problems, really need to know, if you all can help with your Husband Institute program. So my husband said, well, tell him, come on, tell the mother to come on across the street. And, because she had been irate, she was letting the principals have it. Because she kept getting called back and forth because her child had behavior problems. So he said, have them come on across the street. But when they came across the street, we connected them with one of our senior prayer warriors in the church. And so after just listening to them, just listening to her and praying with her, it was assessed that we would send them to Agape. Now, Agape is on our 3rd floor, and we like to affectionately call it the upper room. And so we would say, well, we're just going to send you on up to the upper room after understanding some of her issues, because she was, and after going through Agape, they found out she was hungry, because she had been carjacked a couple of months prior, and that just caused everything in her life to spiral down. And so here she is, feeling overwhelmed, depressed, and of course that's affecting the children. So now her child's having behavior problems in the school. And of course, with the stars and the connectors or Agape, they were able to, get her some help for that. And so when she left our premises that day, they directed her to food, and see, because she lost her job because they stole her car, so now she's trying to catch the bus just to get to the schools. They were able to assist her, and so we got a call from the school that said, what happened over there? And we told her what happened, and they said, well, listen, this woman came back, she apologized for cussing us all out. And she says, and the child is doing better because, of this 2-gen model that they have. They were able to understand that he has behavioral problems because of what's going on at home. And so because she's stressed out, she's giving it to the school. And so because of that collaboration, it was like, she got her spiritual needs met, her emotional needs met, she was able to eat, they were able to direct her to some resources. So not only did they have, provide hope, they provided health. And because of that health, you're able to have healthier homes and healthier families, because it's a net. We like to talk about having networks. Well, we say that this is a net that's working. And it's working together. And so we've got, several other things. And these are just, people from outside, but even within the church. Likewise, we had a parent, she's a grandmother. So she was a young mom, and then her children were young moms. And so now there's 3 generations of poverty, all living in one home, and they got burned out. And so they came to the church, and they, had heard us talking about Agape, so they already knew to go to the upper room. But no, we called and we set an appointment for them and everything. And so because of that collaboration, they were able to do for them what we as a church could not do for our own members. And that was to provide them with housing, help them get housing, help them get furniture and clothing. And they have like about 6 little ones. And you're talking about single parent families, that just really need that help. And so it's just amazing to see. And interestingly enough, these are people who really didn't serve in the ministry. They just came and sat. And after that, the grandmother became an usher. I mean, because in her mind, the church helped me.
Yes.
But the church helped because Agape was there to help where we couldn't. And so, for that we are forever grateful. And, there's just so many other stories like that, that we just, it's just amazing to have this collaboration. And, you know, likewise, we like to call this a covenant relationship.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I love that. That's exactly what I was thinking. When I hear you and Apostle talk about a covenant relationship, and it's been a sweet relationship. And so we've gone deep for about a year or 2, year and 3 months now. And part of this modeling and intention in our community churches, so other churches in Fraser, and coming alongside through prayer, and then what we call anchor churches. And so churches that are resource churches throughout the community that we're creating these partnerships, and that's even happening even as we speak. And Agape having 22 staff embedded in the church. And y'all have talked about through this work together, over 350 salvation decisions made through your church. And so all this work going on through this collective we. Thank you. So I want to introduce again to you Tim Burleson. Tim is Agape's board chair. Love and appreciate this man, leader with Dell Company. And ask Tim if, as nonprofits, board of directors serve on behalf of the community. And so kind of community to community, community leader to community leader, to be able just to speak around Agape, stewardship, anything else, obviously, as board chair, you'd like to say and share at this moment.
Now, I've sat up here listening to the great stories here and sit out there and listen to the great progress, the great partnerships that we have across the community. I get the privilege of sitting in on our board meetings and hearing about the great work that our staff is doing out in the community, the votes of confidence that other organizations give us, either in funding or support or help or all the above. And then I look in the mirror and think, who is this guy to be part of such a great organization that we were actually a customer of almost 20 years ago when we went through our path classes at Agape to become foster parents. I had no idea what God had in store for us. But for me and my family, this is a way of giving back to an organization that's not only meant so much to Memphis, but selfishly to my family. We have 2 adopted children that process started with Agape. And it's amazing to see how much Agape has not necessarily changed, but evolved into reaching up into the systemic issues that we don't catch. You all heard the story about the dangerous road. You put a guardrail at the top or a hospital at the bottom. In many ways, Agape was a hospital at the bottom, where we were catching folks that were already in crisis. But how do we catch them before they get to crisis? And so you see all these partnerships and things that are going on there. So over the years of being a customer and being a board member and now the chair of the board, there's been a lot come our way. Not always good, but Romans 8:28 tells us that for all things work together for good. Not some things, all things. Crazy thing about the Bible, the Greek word for all is all. So you look at everything that God gives you, and you just take it and run with it. And so with us, our staff has grown. In the last 3 years, we've almost tripled in size. We were gifted a new building. We thought, when we walked in, how can we ever build this up? In the last board meeting, we were just like, where are we going to put all these people? We see funding coming to us in areas quite frankly, we weren't faithful enough to pray that day. But God continues to bless us. And so we have some numbers up here on the board. It's a eye chart per se, but God has gifted us with a number of resources, and those resources go back into these programs that are wraparound programs. It's not just about Agape. It is enabling all of our ecosystem to help people become as self-sustaining as we can be in this society, so we can move the needle of poverty and make a difference in this city. And not only from our expenditures, but also from the donations. We have a number of different outside organizations that audit us and make us a better organization. Slingshot is one of those. But from an accountability standpoint, the more great work you do, the crazy thing is, the more naysayers that you invite into your world to say, that can't be as good as what they say it is. Well, we are an open book. With a great leader like David, great staff, great executive leadership team, we are an open book. I'm part of a board that might be the most active board in the city, maybe even in the state. And when I say active, it is not we are micromanaged. It's like, team, what do y'all need from us? What can we go do out to the community to help what Agape is doing? Because we're not here to make a name of Agape. I'd love for us to work ourselves out of a job. But the Bible tells us the poor will always be with you. So we will always have the opportunity to do more. And it's a privilege to do that. You know, in 2002, my family and we moved to Memphis from the great country of Texas. I'm sorry.
Had to say it.
Well, pour some more for you. But when we got here, we were always confused why people weren't proud of where they were from. Well, now when I travel to what I call Eastern Memphis, some people call it Nashville. I'm proud to say that I'm living from Memphis. Memphis is home. And the crazy thing is, people are now starting to take notice of what's happening in Memphis, not because of what Agape is doing, but the great story that this city is writing right now. It's not the story about the future. It's not the story about the past. It's the story of right now. And I want to leave y'all with that Agape is working with families right now in their time of need, in their time of crisis, but also in their time of celebration. With among the great partners that we have here, faith-based, government-based, we have to do it all together. And so for that, I'm glad that we are part of the chapter that's being written about Memphis right now, so that generations to come, they can come back and say, this is a favorite chapter.
Amen. Thank you. That's why you're board chair. Help me in thanking Pastor Sheila, Justin, and Tim.